It is 5:01, and we are now going to call our special meeting to order. Welcome. This is a special meeting of the Kent School District Board, which is held in public to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. The purpose of this meeting is a work session on policy with Ms. Pam Howley. But before we get there, we're going to do a roll call for attendance. I'm going to call each name, and if they're present, they will say present or something similar. Director Farah.
Present.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Hamada.
Present.
Vice President Margell.
Here.
And then I am here, obviously, physically and mentally. So we will now start our policy work session, but I'm going to call upon Deputy Superintendent Dr. Behringer for introductions for this evening.
Great. Thank you, President Benno. We've got a great opportunity tonight with Miss Pam Hawley, our policy coordinator, and a policy work session. So it's all yours.
Good evening, President Benno, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Behringer, and Ms. Curry. Tonight is our first policy work session of the 23-24 school year. As normal, I printed out the PDF so you can follow along. We'll zip through it kind of quickly and then go back to the policies. Again, just a reminder that we're mostly focusing on essentials to get us caught up. Policy and procedure, every time we bring this up. The work and the why, I kind of looked into some of this, and our own policy 1005, key functions of the board states, and it is reiterated on the KSD website. Why am I nervous tonight? Oh my gosh.
Take it out.
You got it. Specifically, the board's functions lie in the following areas, where the first bullet point reads adopting policy. And then policy 1310, policy review, adoption manuals, etc. A board policy is a formal expression of the judgment of the board providing guidance or regulation for administrative action. Legislation of new policies and the periodic review of existing policies are primary functions of the board. I just kind of put some notes down. You guys can take a look at it as we go through these policies, but just I'm here to facilitate. I'm not here to persuade one way or the other, and we don't have to have everyone agree. We need a consensus. But we'd like it. I mean, it's for our kids. We want to create great policy for our kids. What I want to talk about first is the adoption of non-substantive policy revisions at the September 13th regular meeting. House Bill 1207, Preventing and Responding to Harassment, Intimidation, Bullying, and Discrimination in Schools, prompted changes which are strictly limited to revising the term emergency expulsion to the term emergency removal. The legislative intent is to remove the previous term emergency expulsion, noting that it was prejudicial and could tarnish a student's reputation. The term emergency removal is a more accurate description of a school district's authority. This change in verbiage is statutorily mandated. It is not at the board's discretion, and it does not require board deliberation. By putting these policies on the consent agenda of the September 13th regular meeting, there is a record of the changes being made, though the term must be used beginning with its effective date of July 23rd, 2023. We've updated everything in BoardDocs so that it reads this way now. Mm-hmm. The procedures will have the same type of language. I just want to say I have a throbbing headache right now. If I have to step away, I'm sorry. These are the policies and procedures that will be on the September 13th regular meeting. I am so sorry. Give me just 1 second.
No worries. But for an update for the substantive policies, just because we don't need to deliberate. I mean, obviously, if we want to talk about it, we can bring it to a policy review to talk about the whole thing, but we don't need to meet just to change words.
No. Yeah,
No, I
agree.
mean,
Yeah.
those, it's appropriate that expulsion, right?
Yeah.
Is to removal.
Correct.
You know what, I'll grab those if you don't.
Well, that plus obviously state law.
Yeah, he kind of trumps.
Trumps everything.
Trumps
But I mean,
us, I
it's the
think.
right way, right? It's even mentions the, the best, perfect way to,
And it's a good reminder,
right.
so,
I like it.
yep, of course.
Right.
Don't be sorry.
Don't be,
Yes.
I mean, if you need
So-
more time,
If I have to, I'll take it.
please take it.
And I
Don't-
appreciate it.
Yeah, don't hesitate.
Absolutely.
I just want to point out that Ms. Sherry Simpson had met with Ms. Talia Hardy, the student who spoke about student dress. That policy will be brought forward after you can see the other voices are heard, and Ms. Simpson makes those notes in the policy.
Do you remember that student that came to talk about dress code?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, policy 3231. Actually, let me skip through these and then we'll go through them one at a time so I can pull everything up. We'll be talking about student records, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, bullying of students, unpaid holidays for reason of faith or conscience, code of ethics, audit of expenditures, meeting conduct, order of business and quorum, proposed agenda and consent agenda, complaints concerning staff or programs, and then the next policy work session is October 4th, and any policies moving forward will be on the September 27th regular meeting, other than the non-substantive policies will be on the September 13th. So let me pull up our files and start with (3231) student records. The changes to this, and in fact, let me start with President Benno asked about the change where diplomas can no longer be held for restitution, and said, I'm okay with this for minor things, but what about major things? Well, based on House Bill 1536, high school diplomas, it's also tied to revised policy 3520, which we will bring in October. And it says that diplomas cannot be withheld for damages under $1,000. Diplomas must be released after 5 years or until the amount owed is less than $100,000, whichever is earlier. If a student provides community service, they must be credited for the time that they've done community service at the going rate minimum wage, whichever's higher, local or state.
And just to confirm, this is the actual just paper diploma. They still receive graduation if they ask for a transcript and show that they graduate, all of that. This is just, not just, it's important, but it's the paper.
It is, and we had put language about withholding not withholding the diploma certificate. This gives a little more clarity as far as that $1,000 mark and what we need to do with that. But again, that will be more on student fines, fees, and charges. But just so you know, this is the update to this policy. Any
Ms. Holly,
questions?
was that House Bill, did you quote a number on that?
I did. It is House Bill
Just curious.
1536.
Okay, thank you
It's
very
called
much.
High School Diplomas Withholding for Property Damage.
Anybody have any questions or comments, discussion?
It is, you said 100,000 or 100?
1,000.
1,000, okay.
Yes. And even after 5 years, if they have not paid that 1,000 or even gotten it below 1,000, they get their diploma. Good to move forward on that one?
It
Yeah,
looks like it.
I like it.
Great. Next, we have policy 3207, prohibition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying of students. That's a change in the language. It now reads of students. There's a law which requires WASDA, in consultation with OSPI, to periodically and as needed make updates to the policy and procedure prohibiting harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which I'll refer to as HIB. The policy has been updated to clarify that the HIB law and process should be used for student-to-student HIB only. The procedure lists the aggressor as being a student who harasses, intimidates, or bullies another student. So adults are taken out of this. It's handled with other policies and procedures. Any questions on this one?
I had a question, but it got subsumed when I realized that this must have come from the original WASDA language. It lists distinguishing characteristics when the act, and then it lists 4 things. And then the following sentence, nothing in this section requires the affected student to actually possess a characteristic that is a basis for the harassment, intimidation, or bullying. I'm assuming that came straight from WASDA.
It did, and Director Hamada had the same question. So what it means is the student can report HIB if they don't have any characteristic that's listed in this. You don't have to have a specific thing called out in order to report HIB. So they've talked about, for instance, weight. They talked about, some of the other things were economic, looking at clothing for economic status. But it says you don't have to have any of those things going on. Someone can still be harassing you, intimidating you, or bullying you. So they wanted to make it clear that anyone can report and a report should be made. Did I get that right, Susie?
Yeah, and it could be that they could harass based on any of those, based on any of those characteristics, but you don't necessarily need to possess them. So somebody could harass somebody because they say 4 eyes, you wear glasses, when the person doesn't even wear glasses. So that still could be a form of HIB in those characteristics. Does that answer that?
And so the document, we're adding of students because it was not for just students before. I guess that's my curious question too. That was weird to me to read. And I asked that, I think, to Ms. Halley, and you stated about how legislative bill 1207, which makes sense. But I'm just curious about why of students, because this is under the student section, so I was just curious why that's called out.
Absolutely, and I think that's where the clarification came in, because prior to that, the language had an aggressor could be an adult, either within the school community or outside of the school community. So you could name an aggressor that we could actually, have no action against if it was a founded HIB. So we went back and really looked at the intent of the law and the clarification around this is really about student to student.
Got it. It just makes sense. To me, it's like it's under the 3000 series of students that we would be talking about students, but it's good to clarify.
I just think that sentence is kind of awkward.
I thought so too.
And I thought, what are they saying here?
Well, personally, I like it because what people perceive of you or may be saying to you, you don't find, but the words that they're saying are still inappropriate or harassing or.
But that's true.
That's exactly what it's intended to capture.
It's true of anything.
Not necessarily, because the characteristic they might be pointing out might be true, but it's said in a disparaging way. That's different than they said something about you that's not true, and it's still disparaging. So just because it wouldn't be thrown out, what I would hate is for somebody's claim to be thrown out, well, you don't have that characteristic. Well, yes, but the words were still
Well, harassment is
Harassing.
harassment, yeah.
so,
I get it.
yeah. No, I know, yeah,
I'll live with it.
okay. But yes.
Other questions, concerns, comments, discussion? We look like we're having a consensus?
Yep.
Okay.
I wanted to point out that Ms. Whitlock, who's the Executive Director of Learning Supports, actually found a problem that the way this was written, and we reached out to WASDA and they corrected it based on her capturing that, so.
Great.
Okay, we're on to policy 5409, unpaid holidays for reason of faith or conscience. If you remember, we brought this one to the board. It was on the agenda, but we pulled it off because there has to be a resolution that goes with it when it's adopted. And it's very simple in how it reads. It refers to procedure, which HR will be presenting, I believe, on the 27th. The difference with this is now that in order for us to have this as our process and policy procedure, we have to adopt that resolution at the end of the month to actually make it law for the Kent School District. So, any questions about that?
I put in a comment about, like, I would love to see, and I know this is bargained and this is other things that's beyond my control, but I would just like us to see something saying that we're gonna make every effort to allow personnel to take major religious holidays off regardless of what the major religious holiday is, whether it's Eid, or whether it's Jewish holidays, whether it's Christian holidays, that we, like, and I get that this is in there, but I just think we should just automatically have those off, but that's a whole other discussion, calendar discussion, which is touchy right now.
I had that note in there that you had said you'd like to have us make every effort to take major religious holidays off. I did a quick Google search of major religious holidays. There are 24. So I think this policy allows flexibility. I talked to Director Anita McPherson in HR about it. We do have a generous leave without pay policy on this, and it's kind of counterbalanced by the paid holidays that are off.
I just think when I went to the National School Board Conference, and one of my friends who is a board director in Virginia, I think, said that they started August and they got out in June and they took all the major religious holidays off. It's just something to think about. I just think that we should look at what our community, who's in our community, what religions they celebrate, and if we have a high percentage, we should just have those off. But that's just me.
And we allow it for students.
Yep.
It's actually in our student policy.
But this is specifically personnel,
Yeah,
and so that, I know
yes.
that's bargained and calendared and whatever, but we should make every effort.
I would also say, though, what I appreciate about this statement is that just because somebody's religion is not of the most popular, and so it's not just a high percentage, your religion is important and sacred to you. So having that flexibility to have those days, even if you're not part of the majority of that faith within the district boundary. So I think this leaves room for both primarily and the smaller represented religions within our district. So.
WASDA also points out George Costanza celebrates Festivus, and that if people choose to celebrate Festivus, we allow it,
We should.
as long as it doesn't cause undue burden, and that's in this as well.
And that, like, if we had 800 staff members want to take Jewish holidays off, then we
Correct.
would have to probably rethink, like, what we do for our calendar, right? So that would, I wouldn't say we are not going to honor your religious holiday
Right.
request, but that's something we would just have to look at as an organization, what our days off are, and et cetera.
We good to move ahead?
And maybe this is a discussion for human resources, but when you say grants leaves, that doesn't affect, I mean, the pay comes from the contracts and that agreement, but what if
These-
you're presenting an undue hardship and having to have a substitute? That doesn't in any shape or form work against you in your job description? I mean, that's probably.
These are unpaid leave without pay holidays, these two specifically.
Right, I get it, but I'm saying, I get the unpaid and all that, but what about, I mean, there's nothing that means that we can't hold against them on their record or anything if they're taking, that's kind of, okay, I just want to make sure that I hear that right, that's not going to be discriminated in any of your ratings or, job description or however, okay, got it.
Good to move ahead?
I mean, we already do this, right? We all do give people who have special religion days off. Yeah,
I feel like there's ways go ahead, because I have a comment.
No, I was just gonna say, Director Farah, we do have, I mean, because we employ almost 4,000 people, who come from all walks of
All
life.
walks, yeah.
All beliefs, religions, creeds.
Right.
We do have, employees
Right.
that take off their religious holidays, without it being an observed district holiday per the
Exactly.
calendar.
Right.
And they have that right to do that.
And it's the unpaid one that's we're just talking about.
Correct.
But this is new, right? This policy, we're putting it in place because it doesn't exist.
Correct, but we've done that already. I checked with HR, we've already been doing
Yeah.
the leave without pay for holidays that people want off.
I know that because there are Muslim kids that celebrate Eid and they don't get punished for taking those days off, yeah.
And that's in our
Yeah.
student excused and unexcused
yeah,
absences.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is one of the
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Good to go ahead?
Yep.
Second.
Okay, we are on to 1002, Code of Ethics. President Benno asked if there was a matching procedure for this policy and if there's an ethics board. This policy was taken from the National School Board Association Code of Ethics, which was last updated November 1999, and is no longer found even on their website, and many districts have done away with this policy. There's no matching procedure. WASDA doesn't have this policy or procedure. They have established the Washington School Board Standard as a compass for principles of good governance and ethics. They have a values and ethical behavior section in the school board standards. Is this a policy that you as a board would like to keep? And I would point out that Director Hamada added the yellow highlighted section, or would like to have seen that be added if we choose to keep this policy.
Can we make that
Read
big?
it out loud.
Sure. She added, and the federal and state laws of the United States and state of Washington. And that comes after the board of directors as independently elected officials recognize and accept the responsibility of the role and personal authority to act within the school district structure and the federal and state laws of the United States and state of Washington.
Well, I mean, I'm not crazy about keeping it, but I mean, if we're going to do a code of ethics, those do trump our policies, you know? We took an oath to that.
I just feel like visually, it's like if the board is like, oh, let's just get rid of the code of ethics policy. I don't think that looks really good for us. I think we should keep it because having a code of ethics is important. And so maybe we reference the Washington School Board standards here instead of this, or rewrite it in a way that when we talk about we focus our code of ethics on the Washington School Board standards or something like that. But I wouldn't want to do away with the code of ethics policy. The other thing I asked about is a lot of what I've been seeing with like government boards, not necessarily us, and I asked about an ethics board of some sort, if there is, because we're elected officials, obviously people don't like us, they can vote us out, but also I think if there's something that happens and there's 4 years to an election, that there should go to some sort of ethics board or something, and I don't know what the feasibility of that is or who would make it up, but I just want to put that out into the universe too as something that we should look into as well, but not necessarily put it in the policy, but just something to think about. Because I've heard a lot about different government agencies adding ethics boards, and
So you're saying like ethics board that is gonna evaluate what we do?
not necessarily evaluate us. If there's like a concern or a
Concern, yeah.
complaint, then it would go to this ethics board or committee. But I don't even know like the exact function of it. I've just been hearing a lot about it. That's maybe
Right.
something our legal counsel can chime in on, but I don't know.
I mean,
Who would be on that board, though?
That's-
overseeing
I don't know how I don't know how the other groups do it though.
I mean, we're supposed to govern ourselves, right? We're supposed to be the ones that keeping each other accountable.
But then we look at other government agencies who don't necessarily do that, which is why they put in an ethics
Right.
board. But I'm not saying we need it. I'm just saying if we're talking about code of ethics,
Right.
that could be something we talk about. But I don't know. I don't know what the feasibility, if we even need it, but something to ask.
This, President Benno, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Behringer, and Madam Clerk for this evening. This issue's come up a lot in local agencies and special purpose districts and cities. The state, I think, has a board, a complaint avenue for state workers, but not so much for local workers. And we're governed by RCW 4230, which is the state code of ethics. And you'll see, I mean, if you took that statute out, you'd see a bunch of the things in there. They're sort of standard meat and potato stuff. And we go a little bit beyond that. Yeah, that's where it comes from. And there's really not much oversight that's in terms of a legislative body or an empowered body, an agency. It's you. So, sorry to bring you down.
Councils have that? Do Kent and Covington and Maple Valley, do councils have that?
They have the same rules, as far as I know. 4230 is the, I think that's the statutory site for the code of ethics. And they put that in their charter and typically.
Typically, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to think about, and I would love an education on when somebody's elected by the constituents, Kent School District, over 100,000 people.
Right.
And you have a board of, what, 3, 5, 7 private citizens, how the voice of those 3 or 5 private citizens could overrule the majority vote of 100,000 residents of an area. Like, I'm just trying to think, like, what does that mean? I'm not saying I'm agreeing or disagreeing, I'm just trying to understand more of, like, what could they even do other than saying, we don't.
I think that the real big hammer is the recall. And that means the board would have to have to do
Gone through it.
misfeasance, malfeasance, or breach of your oath of office.
You have an avenue.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it has to be big. And, you know, you can make up your own rules, and you can have a subgroup of this board and maybe a staff member to make recommendations to the larger body. That could be one way to do it. Some cities do that, but those are big, you know, Chicago-type cities.
Yeah.
I mean, as a board, we have the ability to say we get censuring so-and-so, but that's about it, right? Is there any other?
There is just recall, and that wouldn't be
it.
something that you would necessarily get into, or, you know, I've seen some boards endorse a recall of their fellow board members. That's sort of ugly stuff, but, yeah.
It's horrible.
That's
But do you know what like a procedure of, or a process of like an ethics board would be? What would that look like? If we had one, what would that necessarily look like?
You know, I hadn't given it much thought before tonight, but I can certainly do that. And it may just be as simple as what I said. We form a group, a sub-rotating, you know, ad hoc standby group, and then populate it with a couple members of the board, not a quorum, a couple members of staff, maybe some folks, at-large folks. And then they can make recommendations. They can hear that. I know that you know, some corporations have the hotline, the Sarbanes-Oxley hotline. You probably do that.
Right.
And that became real popular. But you can do that. It's just staff, you know, and then you got to wade through a lot more complaints. So.
Yeah, and there's also a difference of a private corporation compared to elected officials.
Right.
Again, when you go back to the will of the people, which I think we hold very high esteem of what the constituents have decided that they want on their board. And not superseding that with the will of
Yeah, I see what
small
you're saying.
group of people,
Yeah,
right?
I know it. I'm sure in your spot, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Or could be.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, like Director Mergel said, that, you know, elected officials are held standard by the voters, right? If they don't like it. But, like, if somebody is doing something just right after they got elected, there are other ways and avenues to make sure that person's held accountable.
Right.
And, I mean, there's so many ways. There's, you know.
But where would an ethics board get their power from?
I think that's a question.
Well, I'd have to,
Can we,
sorry, go ahead.
can we table
I-
this? I mean,
yeah.
I feel like this is a really big, that we can give.
We can definitely do it. as I was doing my homework Sunday night and I was looking into a lot of different things, including this, that was one of the things that kept coming up as I was doing research was this idea of an ethics board at local levels, et cetera. So that's why I just asked. So I'm not asking to include language. The only thing I would ask is that we replace this with the standards, the WASDA board professional standards. That's all I would ask. But I'm just putting that out into something for us to think about, or not. But I was just as I was looking, a lot of local agencies are doing it. So I was like, that's interesting. But I don't necessarily know how it works, what it's for. But it was very interesting to me.
President Beno, are you aware of any other school districts that are doing that?
Oh, I don't remember.
No, I haven't seen anything like that with school board.
But, you know, I can look into that and get back to you offline or online here if you want. MRSC is a good site if you're roaming around online.
Can we reference this, what you just mentioned, that was a
They have this with
4230?
4230, yeah, in this,
anybody like that?
In the document.
in the document, yeah,
Sure.
reference that, so that we can always go back and see that.
How do my colleagues feel about removing this, getting rid of this, changing this?
I don't want to remove it, I just want to, like you said, add that language saying, let's follow the Washington State, was the
School board standards.
standards, yeah.
But it's got the legal reference on it too,
Yeah.
the bottom.
I guess, I'm sorry, there's standard language that's different than this that other people have suggested. I would want to look at that before we got rid of this.
How about if I put it in, bring it back on October, I think it's 6th?
Yes.
And you guys can look at it then.
Thank you.
Also, I'll reach out to WASDA and see what they do about if they have ethics complaints there. Maybe they handle them there.
Awesome.
So we'll hold this and come back with the Washington State standards and for review in October.
Yeah.
That's the consensus?
I think that's
4230 also. if you
Yep,
could-
got it in here. Okay, 1331, audit of expenditures. This also is a policy WASDA does not have, but our finance department would like to keep it if the board is in agreement. President Beno asked about the struck out language that's showing in red. Are you able to see that well? I checked with Amanda Davis. She's the Assistant Director of Accounting and Finance. She let me know that we no longer send the signed certification to the county. The county's notified at the time of the issuance of payments. So that's the only change in that.
I thought we didn't care about promptness anymore, so
I
thought that
I
was-
got the smiley face. I saw the smiley face. We care about promptness
We
here.
sure do. So I'm
President
glad to
Beno.
hear it's not required, that part.
Anyway, finance would like to keep this if the board is in agreement.
Yeah, I don't,
Yes.
no problem with that.
Yes.
Good to move ahead?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we're on to policy 1400. The change in this has been to add what is now law that will take place June of 2024, where we are required to record board meetings. Well, we do that already. President Beno asked about executive exempt or emergency meetings being audio recorded. They are not. All regular and special meetings of the board at which final action is taken or formal public testimony is accepted, except executive sessions, exempt sessions, or emergency meetings will be audio recorded at least, and we audio and video record. So we're already in compliance, but this does not take effect until June of 2024, but we're already there.
Is public statement ever taken at exempt sessions or no, or emergency meetings? Is that ever a thing?
Mr. Brockvogel?
Because if so, wouldn't those have to be recorded anyway? I guess that was my
I don't
question.
think so, because of privacy. But
So the question was whether public comment could be taken in executive session or otherwise not public?
Well, I was asking, like, for exempt sessions and emergency meetings, couldn't there be public comment?
Right, you can, yes, you can take a public comment in special meetings, which are emergency meetings. And usually you would want to put that on the agenda. There's a weird rule that says, the newer rule in the OPMA that says you don't have to, you generally have to take public comment before you take action on items, but not in special meetings. So then you've got this requirement that you've got to really sort of particularize your agenda for special meetings. So if you wanted to, you could probably put something like that, comment to be heard or something like that, so the public knows what you're doing. That probably didn't answer your question, but.
No, but it makes sense. It just makes sense. But we're just specifically talking about, we have to record all meetings minus these exceptions. So
Oh, okay.
that's it. That's all I.
So are you saying, Joel, that they would have to be recorded if there was public comment? Is that?
I don't know if I just misread that, because I was like, wait a minute, so they all have to be except for emergency, et cetera, but maybe I'm just misread or misinterpreted what I was reading.
yeah, it says except executive sessions, exempt sessions, or emergency meetings. So even if there was testimony taken in those, they're not required to be recorded.
Maybe, because then it says, comma, will be audio recorded. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I'm not big on commas and semicolons and whatever. I just think like it's not reading well for me, I think, is my confusion, but maybe that's just me. But I understand the intent of the language, but to me it just looks weird. So I guess that was my misunderstanding.
Okay.
But I get it.
Okay. I can,
Didn't answer your question right. She did, but.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I get it. I appreciate that.
good? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I thought our meetings were at 6. Am I wrong?
No, 6:30.
6:30.
Have they always been 6:30?
Yeah, well, it was 7 o'clock, we changed it 6:30.
Yeah.
It used to be 7 o'clock.
How come I feel like I get here at 4?
Literally.
You do. You do.
Yeah, the executive session.
You do, really.
Okay, so we always do the work session before and
Yeah.
then, okay, and so that's, the regular meetings always start at 6:30?
6:30, yeah.
Remember they said 2 meetings a month from 7 to 9.
I'm still trying to find out
Who lied?
who lied.
Is it the onboard?
Yes, who lied.
Let's
think
not
that's
get
part of
into
it. That's
that.
part of
Let's
Okay,
not get into
so
that.
it really is 6:30?
Yes,
Sorry.
Yeah, it is 6:30.
Yes.
It is.
it really is.
It used to
For
be 7
all
o'clock.
of you out there,
Yeah.
it is not really 6:30, let me tell you. There's a lot more meetings before
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Correct.
Pretty soon.
Vice President
going to-
Margell, did you want to move on, or should we talk about 4 o'clock?
We're gonna be here all night if we have to talk about 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Hey, I was thinking about noon or something, you know?
Wow.
Luncheon
Y'all
meetings.
pay for subs.
I said, I have a full-time job.
Well, you could take a long lunch hour
Hour.
or two.
Anybody else have any comments about this one? Questions?
We are good to go.
Heard an
No.
Sure? Go ahead.
No, I'll hold this one.
Okay. Okay, we're on to 1420, proposed agenda and consent agenda. The board asks that this policy be brought back.
Yes. Who wants to start? Okay, I guess I will. So, so I guess one of the reasons why I wanted this to be brought back was our discussion about how we take public comment. Because in order for the procedure to change, we have to change the policy so that the procedure will meet what the board wants in the policy.
Right.
So what I heard the board talk about at our last meeting is the idea of how we allow for the public to make comments. And whether or not, like, we wanted to not get rid of a way for the community to submit their comments verbally, but we weren't very excited about having to read someone else's words. And so I think what we wanted to kind of talk about was figuring out a way, whether it's Zoom or virtual or audio record or video record, or something where someone is saying their own words versus having someone else read the words out, not necessarily what you feel. So I think that was a discussion, and I don't know what or where or how that would go, but I want to make sure that however we word it, that shows up in the procedure.
Well, a question for acting superintendent Erringer. The capability of us to transmit verbal over video, et cetera.
Yeah, Director Clark, when we left the last conversation, we had several meetings with our technology team to find out what's the feasibility of bringing Zoom into the mix. A large part of that conversation was the person hours that would take. So someone coming and managing Zoom, the chat feature, as well as people coming on to Zoom, as well as not knowing what they may or may not say on Zoom, and so not having the knowledge of that ahead of time, which is not dissimilar to current people that come in and fill out the cards and hand those pieces in. But the cost for someone outside of their work hours to be able to manage that on a regular basis. So it's not saying a no to that, but it's saying, like, are there some other options? And there are. I mean, there are people have brought up, like, can someone, video record themselves, and then submit that, say, 24 hours in advance, and then we review that, and then we're able to share it, and that way it kind of meets the needs of some of the conversation that the board has asked for, is like our community members being able to share through their own voice, reading their own their public comment versus anyone else needing to read that public comment. So I think that's probably a conversation for the board. That's why we're here tonight. This is the opportunity now to kind of share some different ideas. It's not as easy just to say, okay, we're going to go to Zoom now, and we're going to provide that opportunity for people to kind of chime in and do that. So we're hoping that this conversation will kind of elicit some different ideas that maybe will not put us in the position where Zoom is the only option that we have.
I just remember in our June 1st of last year, because I went back and looked after our last board meeting, I went back and looked at that. It was June 1st, 2022, at our work session, where we talked about that, and we said, oh, we just spent money on all these cameras. Here they are. And we just need to wait with someone resign, and we need to hire someone, and it'll be easy. Renton does it, the Southern District does it, other people do it. So then I feel like a year later, we're like, well, now it's not feasible, but there's a lot of districts who are doing this exact same thing. So it's not impossible. So it's an option, and I understand concern about what people will say, but in person, people say lots of things. And it's still managed. Like, I don't think we need to manage a chat. I think we manage people in a room, and if it's their turn, they come. And if they say something sketchy, mute, kick out of the room. Like, to me, I don't think it's that challenging. But also we talked about AI reading. I don't know how I feel about that, because I want people's voice, I want their words. Mm-hmm. But obviously there's exceptions for people who need accessibility. But I think that there's a lot of different things that we can do. And I don't think we need to read people's comments.
No, I agree with that. And first, I do want to say that I feel for families and trying to get here in time. I get that. I have a full-time job. I have 2 kids in the district. And getting here for not just the meeting that's twice a month that starts at 6:30. This is challenging, and we want those voices from our different parents and community members. I very much do like the idea of giving people the opportunity to be able to say their own words. And I think that that's important to hear the voice of our community. And I think that there is also, I know that school starts as early as 6:25, I believe, for some of our schools.
Oh, yeah.
And we have teachers and administration and tech that is here very early in the morning and staying till very late at night. So how to balance that out. So being able to time shift some of that work so people can say their own words, record them, and turn them in. And then that gives people the opportunity to, I don't know, sometimes I fumble on my words. I don't think I'm the only one that does that sometimes. And having the opportunity to re-record it and send in exactly how you want your words to say and making sure it fits in the time frame. And then also being able to send in the written communication too. So then we can have, if you don't want to say that if you want to give it to us and we can read that and have that distributed to the board, that gives an opportunity for that to happen. If you want your words read, you can read them, send them in early, the 24 hours ahead, just like we had the written comments before, and then we can have that, our tech partners be able to do that work ahead of time during their normal business hours without having to necessarily stay and have last-minute tech issues that sometimes tend to come up. So I personally think that gives more opportunity for more voices and being able to be sensitive to families that maybe our board meeting times are not exactly during their best times, so they can send that in early.
Dr. Clark.
A little different view. So the board meetings are just that. They are meetings of the board working down through an agenda which is published in advance. So my first objective would be, of course, if they have had a chance to review that, then we should find a way for them to communicate, but the following ways are possible. So I'm going to just make up an example, bear with me. All right, so the new capital budget proposal, all right? So it lists 10 schools and they're going to have this sort of thing done, Adam. And I'm a parent and my school is not mentioned, but another school's getting exactly the same type of, I don't know, new driveway in front of the school, new crosswalk, whatever. And the point being, I want them to be able to express that, in fact, I want my school included in that because I see it as a safety fill in the blank. So my point being is because we publish the agenda in advance, we should have the input, but the fact is they could send us an email and that could be handed to us in a packet and we could review that when we come to that particular topic. But it's not a town hall meeting. And because of that, we're not trying to simply open up the microphone for spur of the moment, oh, I just had a thought on that. For those people in the room who have seen what was presented, they have the time to sign up and can come up and make a comment on it. But it's not a town hall meeting. It's not, everybody can just raise their hand and voice anything on any subject. So I am suggesting that whatever format does get adopted, that it is constrained. It's aimed at the agenda, which is what the board meeting is about.
Director Farah?
Yeah, I just was thinking about what Director Clark was saying, that, I mean, we want to increase public comment. It's no disagreement here. I like what Director Margell said, which is they can record and send it in. Then I just want to know what's the allotted time that we can go down to that specific later on. In terms of sending the comment, they have our emails. So if they have a comment, they want to ask something, or they do that all the time. They send us email, and we've actually gotten emails before the meeting that actually said something that we didn't know. So we brought it up on the dais and said, well, we just got an email from, you know, such a person. We want to know the answer to that question. So they have that ability. I like the idea of them recording and then giving them allotted time where they can send it in 24 hours before. And if they, whatever reason, they feel that it's not enough, they can always come in and do that, or send us an email. Say, this, comment, I've sent it in by video, but I'm following up with this email so that I want to add this part because I forgot to add this part.
Director Hamada, you wanted to go next?
Yeah, I'm just curious because right now we have the capability, like if I was in Georgia or wherever I had a job and I had to be there, but in the evening I had my own time to be board director, I could be on that screen up there in any board meeting, and if I had a comment, I'd just come on when I have a comment, or I could raise my hand. So I'm kind of at a mystery why this is be such a difference in what we can do right now. I mean, we would obviously have to kind of have the people prepared to have access to be on screen, but I'm not totally sure why this would be so different than the format we have right now. I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult.
I think the sheer volume, if there was a hot topic issue and there was like
Yeah,
400
that could
people
be a
that wanted to
problem.
speak.
Exactly.
I think that would be the concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can make one suggestion, when you start saying email the board, I don't think that's the right approach, because the danger is it's emailed to you, not us, and then suddenly you're bringing it up. So my suggestion is, since, again, I remind you, the business of the board meeting is on the agenda, and that's what's supposed to be the topics. I would recommend that, in fact, literally on the agenda, if you feel a need to give us a written statement on this agenda item, forward it to the board and superintendent, but it gets sent to the superintendent. Because that way, it's all being collected at one point, and if they choose to very simply print it off, then we'd have the
Board
actual
secretary.
copies do that. Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that obviously people do have personal problems that are affecting their kid, and it isn't on the agenda, and they still want to get that put there. That's fine, it still becomes a written notice to it. I'm not trying to cut off communication, I'm trying to keep it within the framework of how we operate.
Vice President Margell?
I would also say that I feel like that the comments that we've had, there is a difference between the emails that we get. And so I would say that those ones are a little bit separate for me. And so I would encourage that we continue to be able to have written communication come to the board with comments. As far as, there is a difference, and I have the pleasure of doing different conferences that are via Zoom, and it's harder than you think. And props to our tech people that do this. It is, and when you have comments that need to be made either on a specific topic, that if there's open comment, or it's on the open comment, and when you're trying to figure out, is there a student there? Is it not a student? Is it, and you're trying to do that all live time, that's where the complication, I believe, happens. I can see that. And so, it really does take somebody, multiple people really, to manage that, because you're both trying to do the live stream and then anything else that happens on new people coming in and leaving. And we also don't want it to become a disruption to, again, the meeting of the board, which is really what's happening. So that's why I would, again, go to the proposal of, we want your comments. We want your comments, and now we want to give you additional options. They can be in written form, which will be handed out to the entire board in a board packet. And if we want to have them verbally done, we get to have the voice of our community introduced by turning it in certain file formats, at least how many days, I would say 24 hours, if that's possible, if that works with the scheduling of our tech department. Hopefully no more than 48, I would ask for. But giving enough time that it can be prepared within the meeting days before. And that would be my, I think it's hard live time to deal with. the oncoming stuff.
And I agree. And for me, and I'm gonna say something unpopular, but that's okay, is that then, like, if we want this to happen, we put our money where our mouth is, and we pay the staff, we pay them their overtime, they come and do the work, because that's what our meeting's gonna require if we do that. And we want that, and we want to support, our meeting to run, so that's just one of the things we'll have to do. I mean, for my eyes, that's just,
But I mean, if the people send in the videos 24 hours ahead, then IT can review that.
or if, I don't know if IT even reviews, someone will review.
Or somebody will review that and then be able then like to cue them in and just play them
Yes.
as
Yep.
one after the other. That will not require more work for the IT department, so they don't have to.
It's more work, but at a
Right,
time
right.
shifted
Absolutely.
during.
I just had 30 students do videos for introductions in my psych class, and it was a lot more challenging to organize playing all 30 videos than I thought.
I'm pleased, to be honest, I really like when we have people and we have eyeballs.
Please
I love
come.
the eyeballs that we have out there today, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That, it's nice, it feels good when you have people that you're, that you can look at it. And so I would love for people to continue to come in if possible, but.
And I understand, like you said, people are busy. They have their lives to take care of, but that does not stop them from commenting what they feel comfortable to comment. So, and we want to make sure that the community understands that. So therefore, if they're not here, they still have multiple avenues.
We still have to keep in mind the time constraints too. If you have 100 people record messages, we have 30 minutes at the beginning, or if they are speaking to a specific agenda item, or at the end.
Now, that is another thing that we broke last year during the time when we had so many people, came here to do their comment. At the same time, we had online. So that is the thing that we have to also talk about as a board, is we allowed last year people to, the time to be more than half an hour.
Yeah, that's definitely, we're here having this discussion.
Right.
Is that policy or is that procedure?
That's procedure.
And so, for me, and this is me.
Right.
And I have to get up at 5 a.m. and get to Renton High by 6:45. But like for me, I was elected to do this. I'll be here till 1 a.m. if I have to. And I know that's not what everyone wants, but that's literally our job. And sorry, staff that's here that support us, but this is our job. And so if we're here till 1 a.m., 2 a.m. on a hot issue, here we are. I'll just be really raggedy tomorrow morning when I meet with my kiddos. But it's just one of the things we have to do.
Well, but the argument then becomes, you're going to have to bring some control over if you have 100 live and 100 online.
We kind of have that in our procedure where we do people in person or students in person first and or student comments online. It said like we have a process. We just have to fine tune it.
I just don't like the idea of having it half an hour and cut off, right?
Well, that's only at the beginning so
the
far.
beginning.
And then we do them at the
Right,
end.
and then
we do it at the
Right?
end.
Yeah, but we have done it before at the beginning where we went over half an hour, and then we also went beyond half an hour after we were. I remember that because some nights we were here for like 11:30.
We didn't, at this point, we don't have an end time on our last
Yeah,
public comment.
we've gone till 12 o'clock. I've been here at midnight.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand that, but I think by saying half an hour allotted, it's kind of misleading.
That's only at the beginning.
Yeah, that's so we can get on with our agenda, though,
Right.
yeah.
And again, I remind you, the addition was caused by COVID and trying to accommodate people who couldn't come here. And we're not under that restraint now, so I would suggest that we could conceivably, hold it to live comment.
But we found a way where parents and community members could participate without coming in person. I think that's awesome, and I think we should continue to do so.
My objection there is when it's on a board agenda, we are supposed to have considered this before we come in and sit down. And we do want public input on that. but you don't want spur-of-the-moment comment on it. And that's where I struggle with just simply determining that we're going to simply take everything.
I don't know if I agree with that, because if someone comes up with something, like when we were talking about Canyon Ridge playfield, and then families came from Mill Creek and talked about the playfield, that was some great knowledge to get, and that wasn't necessarily on the agenda. I'm always open to people coming, if it's, yes, this is a board meeting, we work in public for the community to see us, it's our meeting, but we of course want to hear from our community.
I'm not arguing that, I'm just saying that you don't want to simply turn it into an open mic forum, and we don't do that right now, but the point being, there are lots of people that have lots of opinions about what public schools should or should not be doing, and it's not appropriate to simply have the mic captured and prevent us from going forward with the agenda that we agreed was the purpose of the meeting, and that's where I get a
Well,
little distracted.
and that's why you have 30 minutes of public comment, but at the end, if we did choose to stay here as long as we want to and hear varied things after we've gone through our agenda, we can do that. And again, I'm never going to not let people have their time to say what they feel at the end. And I've been very tired when I've left here, but it seems like at least if you give people the chance to speak on an issue, even if they don't get what they want, they have been given the opportunity in this country to say their piece, and I think that's important. Again, we get through the agenda because we have the 30-minute limit on that, so that doesn't seem to be a problem to me, but that's my opinion, and, others I can see have others, so.
Well, whoever sits in the seat, also the seat I'm in specifically, like, part of it is managing a meeting, and sometimes you have to manage people.
True.
And that's part of it's like, hey, maybe we don't say, like, like, let's not call people out, like, or whatever. That's the purpose, like, part of what the board president does is make sure that we kind of catch that too, so.
I do see here in the policy that it does give consideration for options, amending the regular meeting agenda to consider additional items, supplementary information, tabling and continuing matters pursuant to Robert Rule of Orders, which I think what that allows for is, it's 1 a.m. We're tired.
Let's
We've been
table
home
it.
now for
Table
20
this.
hours.
Yep, end the meeting.
We're going to go ahead and carry over the meeting till, whatever time and what that looks like. And I don't know, and this is actually a question, if we did have a plethora of recorded messages, because those would come out first students in person, then students recorded, then non-students in person, and then recorded non-students. So we would have those ones, and so it'd be most likely recorded ones. Could those be viewed at a different time? Or does it can they be held over and just viewed separately
I think
by
that's
the
part of our
board?
discussion. That's part of our discussion of what
Yeah.
we want to do. Like, if that's something, I mean, for me, I would like to hear every voice, but if it's 2 a.m. or 1 a.m., maybe not.
Well, but could we listen to it and say,
So-
here's 30 minutes of recorded comments?
If I can, so from my experience at City Hall, in this case, the board president asked that there not be redundancy in the arguments presented. So if in fact the question is whether the building will be painted green, and the following people have already noted they hate green, or that particular shade of green, the reality is the redundancy it simply becomes harmful for the process of those that are trying to see the next item on the agenda, and that's my problem.
Director Clark, many school districts do note that in their procedure, that if the subject has been brought up more than once or a couple times, the board president negates the comment.
Well, I mean, we're run by Robert's Rules of Order, and we can actually change our meeting on the spot if we have to, right?
Yeah, you just make a motion.
Yeah, that it's time to end the testimony. We've heard, I don't know, I don't know.
I would be very careful of that.
Yeah, I'd
I
be
would be
careful
really
of that
careful
too.
of that because once you start telling people they can't express what they have to say, then we get into a place where we're telling people they can't speak. So, in my opinion,
It was more for, we can bring forth more ideas.
Right.
That would be the way
Right,
I'd lean on it.
that would be a good idea,
I
yeah.
probably wouldn't want to take that one on.
No, I'm thinking more of, there's a point where
Point of order.
Right.
moving it to the next day or
Yeah,
a
I
next
get it.
meeting or.
We can reconvene, we can table the meeting, reconvene the next day if there was
Right.
hundreds or
Right.
whatever. Like, we could do, not whatever, but we, we can, with Robert's rules, many things can happen.
If I may move to, there was other things that I think were brought up as some potential changes to the
Procedure.
procedure that I don't see particularly addressed on here. And so I'm trying to see where,
What were they?
one that I remember, and I would have to look at it particularly, and I would actually ask for that to make sure that is deferring one's time was brought up, and that I don't want to speak out of turn. What I remember, which I cannot tell you
I can pull it up. We
without
actually,
seeing
I
it,
have
yeah, that
it.
would be great, actually.
Yeah.
I don't
You
want to
can't
guess.
give your time to the next speaker is what it was, yeah. It
That was one of
Yeah,
the
and
things, the procedure, yeah.
Yeah, and so that would be something I would like to discuss.
If you want to give your time to the next speaker beyond 3 minutes, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there also was like 30 minutes at the end too, which I didn't, like 30 minutes at the beginning, 30 minutes
30
at the
minutes
end.
at
think
the end.
it was-
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I think it was 60 at the end.
It's
but
60,
let me
okay.
look.
Could-
Yeah,
Oh, man, okay.
I'll
Do
I'll
we
make it
have
bigger.
this?
That help?
Maybe one little bigger.
Okay, that helps.
Okay, so let me know when you want me to scroll down. We're right on the public comment here.
Right there.
I think it's D that you're looking at.
Time deferred, yeah, that is, yeah, time deferred.
Yeah, so kind of going down in order, the first three I'm fine with. D, the idea that you showed up in person, you took your time to come here, and how you use your time when you put your name in the hat and thought about it, and that the comments are somebody else's. I mean, we saw a very young student that ended up asking for a parent to read for them, right? And I don't think there's one person on this board that said that that was inappropriate. And so if somebody you feel like can better convey your thoughts, and that's how you choose to use your time, I don't know if I have an issue with that.
No. I mean, in my opinion, is that, I've seen it before where Kent educators of color came in and somebody had prepared a speech that was about 10 minutes and they know that it's not enough time because we only allow 3 minutes, and they deferred their time to that person, and they know that speech was done. So I don't see any issue for them deferring their time. As long as they're here, they put, like you said, they put their name down, and now they are just saying that this person says better than I would say.
I agree, it's my time, so
It's
if I
my
want to give
time,
my
so
time
if I give it to
away,
you, it's okay.
here's my time.
Yeah.
And usually they've planned that in advance before they've walked in the door. I don't have a problem with that. Because sometimes I can't say, lots of times I can't say what I want to say in 3 minutes.
Yes, I think, and I don't know how we could look at that any differently. Like if that 30 minutes ends in the middle of that prepared statement, it's still going to end. Even if the next people defer their time, they would just need to do that during the next
the
OMIC
next one.
comment.
Yep.
Or we can use Robert's rules and extend time.
Yeah, we could,
If the president so
finish that,
chooses.
you want to finish the thought, I
Yep.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we allowed that before.
Yep.
People actually went over and we were like, okay, finish your thoughts and.
Yep. Written comments.
You need me to scroll down, or are you good?
Right, I mean, so it's the time may not be deferred,
Yep, so that's,
that can,
That needs to be stricken, I think.
So I just want to clarify
right, right.
that you guys are sharing your opinions and thoughts about the procedure language.
yes.
Okay.
no, we're just not.
No, we are, we literally
What
are.
we're saying,
That's
what
exactly
we're
right.
saying
No,
is-
no, I just
Isn't
want
that why we're here?
Right, right.
Yeah.
The
we're here for
procedure-
policy work, but I
Right,
just want to
right.
make sure that this particular piece, we're sharing, the board is sharing their thoughts and opinions around the procedure language that was shared a couple weeks ago.
Because in order for the procedure to change, we have to change the policy. And what we're trying to say is look at what we didn't like a procedure so we can make changes in the policy.
okay, Right. okay.
To support that. Like, that was my thought, unless I'm
right.
doing it wrong.
And the reason why we brought up this was because of the procedure that we saw and what we didn't like, and then we said, let's bring this policy back so that the procedure is actually something that is being driven from the policy.
Correct.
It was more rhetorical than anything.
I know, I know,
Yeah.
I know, I know.
But I just want to make
I
it
just-
clear, that's what we're doing.
Yep.
So,
Can I ask why E? I mean, I kind of get it, but can I hear why that was put in? Because normally don't we just take them as, I mean, I assume, maybe I'm assuming wrong, like, when they write the time, they just go in time order and that students go first and non-students go after.
I don't think we do it in time order. The comments are dropped in the box, and they're handed to Naomi, and she just goes through and kind of sorts by, is it an agenda item or not?
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
actually time-stamped, so we don't know that part in particular.
So that, okay, that makes sense why that's there then. But if, at
And
the
then-
discretion of the board president makes it sound like I can choose whether I read stuff or not, and I don't want anyone to ever think that would make that assumption.
Well, I think that they're just handed to you, so it really is kind of at your discretion. You've got the pile, you can sort, however.
Okay, got it.
Maybe put them all, all the
blame
same
you,
type
But
of
I mean,
comments
I just read them in
together.
order because I literally thought they were time-stamped.
No.
Okay,
We'll just blame you, Joe.
we just,
something I learn every day.
I will tell you, and I know this will not change your mind on anything, but we have the most generous public comment
Yeah, I agree.
period and procedure, even with this change, of anywhere around. I looked at many other districts. So we're not shorting our public.
So,
Many allow 2 minutes. Many have sign-ups, first 20, and that's cut after that. No public comment at the end. There may be a 15-minute time limit. I mean, I'm happy to forward you the information I've found. We have the most generous public comment period.
Yeah, I've listened to some board meetings.
and we want to be the standard, not the,
Exactly, I'm not saying we
Yeah,
change
right,
anything,
right.
but I just want you to know, we're not
absolutely.
less than anyone. We are much more than almost everyone around us.
I mean, I have heard of other districts that do 4 minutes, but they also had more limited time, and it was not open-ended at the end.
Dr. Kim was Highline 2 minutes, correct? Okay, thank you. They went down from 3 to 2. So and I'll gladly get you the information so you can see, but we are very generous in our public comment time.
And everything else up there is basically what I read at the beginning, minus G, but everything else, H through M, is what I read at the beginning of each meeting, correct?
But do you say that may not be deferred?
No, I'm talking about H through
Oh,
M?
oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's, yeah, you read that.
Right, you read that.
Yeah, actually, and down further as well.
Right, right,
more.
right.
But going back
Yeah.
to the written comments, I mean, I don't, are we in a position where we can say, we want to have video, I'm,
No,
like, what is that? I don't know what the next step looks like.
I think we've said what we want to see, and I think I think this policy is obviously going to be brought back with comments to see if we like it. Like, I think that's kind of the next step.
Policy or procedure?
Procedure.
Procedure.
Well, these are procedures, but we need changes in the policy
Right.
so that the procedure will look like the way we want it to look like. So I don't know if that helps.
But we don't want the policy to become a procedure.
Correct. But if we want specific things in the procedure, we have to make it in the policy. Even if it sounds kind of procedure-y, we can make it more policy-y.
E.
E.
So something like a comment, we want to encourage our community to be able to give comments
In multiple ways.
in multiple ways
Yeah.
before and after.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I'm doing this on the fly.
Yep, that makes
And
sense.
so that would be a procedure, how that's, or policy, that's how that is enacted. We
It's in
would
the procedure.
ask.
The procedure would be, so based on this policy, we want the community to have different ways of submitting comments. Then the procedure would be, community members may email, they may do written testimony, they may do video, they may do Zoom. Like, that would be written in the procedure. But the policy would be more general, but I'm hoping that we're heard. Because I feel like we spent a lot of time on this, because I want to make sure that we get what we want, so that our public can have different ways to.
Well, but in practical terms, it can only be what they're capable of actually accomplishing. So that's hence the separation.
Who's
The district.
But if the district says, oh, we can't do Zoom, I will really heavily eye roll and point at Renton, because they do, or they did, I don't know what they do now. So, I mean, there'll be some things that,
And the city of Covington.
yeah.
Who
So,
already
like,
does it.
there's other agencies that do it, and they make it happen. And King County does it, and you can testify at the legislature via Zoom. So so if we get back, oh, we can't do Zoom, I will be very heavily critical on that, because we can. We just need to make it work and look at what we need to do to make it work. For me, because it's not that we can't.
And
So
this-
you would not be, so just to make sure that I understand, you would prefer to have it live comment reading at the time as opposed to turning in a video beforehand that could be,
I want options, so if Zoom is an option, if we can't make Zoom happen, fine, then I want another option like recording a video or audio.
right.
So yes,
and could we also, I'm sorry, I'm very much a fan of iterative changes. If something is not planned
Working.
for, budgeted for, whatever it is right now, the idea that, I mean, although we said that we would think about this in June, and we're a year later, right?
Yep.
More than a year.
Yeah, more than
So, could we get to at least one step better than what we have today?
I mean, to your point, procedure can change.
Yes.
So policy, we go through the process that we're going through now and then working through, going through a board meeting. Procedure, we can make adjustments to make sure that they work for the district and the purpose of the policy itself. So if you write language like you were just explaining, they left it fairly general, but then there was an expectation there of variety or choice or, options, then it gives us the opportunity, as we've been listening, to work on procedure language that will maybe and hopefully meet the needs of the board as well as the community.
Yep. Ms. Holly, would it be possible to get some type of language put in there about?
Sure, and
the
we'll bring it back. Or we could put the very general in, we'll bring it to the board for approval on the 27th, and if it's not what you want, we bring it back on October 4th.
Great.
that
We'll
sounds
just make
amazing.
it very general.
Yeah, very general in terms of how what we just talked about.
Yep, no problem.
And I just want to make one more comment that the city of Covington, and I'm not their Chamber of Commerce, believe me or not, but they run pretty lean and mean, and they do public comment, and I've been there when we've had, especially on the recent issue with the battery storage, their testimony was on Zoom, it was in public, they went on, and they don't have a huge budget for communications, so they get it done. So, again, you might want to talk to them.
Right, I mean, it is, it is something that, as a board, we're asking the district to do, right? And which will cost something. So we're doing it's nothing impossible. The district will do whatever we want, but the ramifications is, as fiduciary, we have to understand it's gonna cost.
Absolutely.
So that is where we need to talk about, are we willing to spend that kind of funding to make sure there's a Zoom or there's an alternative? That's where I'm trying to get us to be able to.
And we could be
have-
working toward that. We don't have to have everything done perfectly.
Right, right.
We can just look into it and be working toward it with that as an aspiration.
Correct. And
Nice.
even on our website saying,
Fair.
we're looking into Zoom, we're looking into video comments.
There you go.
Please submit your comments now, knowing we probably won't read them or whatever, like just getting people prepared, like communication, right? Letting people know this is our plan, it's gonna change, be aware. I think that's great.
Good? So I'll make those changes. We'll bring it to the 27th. If you don't like it, we'll come back in October with it.
Is that a consensus? Great.
Okay, great. We're on to our last policy, 4220.
Oh,
Everybody's excited about
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I know I am.
I'm prepared.
The what? Now where what?
Eighth reading
eighth reading.
of 4220. What I want to do is show you the marked up version with the changes that, the first set of changes Director Hamada had asked for. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Taking out a lot of these things, but then she came back with her own document. And
Director Hamada was busy. Awesome.
Eighth time, I'm tired of this. I think I got copies.
is that large enough for you to read through?
Is there more than one sheet?
Does
we want
Dr. Behringer want one?
Yeah,
Do you, sir? You have an extra? There you go.
that's all I made, I guess.
Mr. Brockvogel looked at this as well, thought there were some good changes in here, and so now if you'd like to review it and see what your thoughts are on it.
I just have a hard time changing things on the spot, so I know this has been a source of, that I've questioned and questioned and questioned. So I took the time to put this together this week, and of course you can question it, but to me, I didn't want to waver too much from what we had done a few years ago, but I also felt that we did need to make some changes regarding the way we held complaints from the staff and all that, so that's in there.
One of the things we added in was a form to be filled out for complaints against the superintendent. So once you review this, and Mr. Brockvogel,
Director Hamada, could you highlight for me the changes from what, like, where's the main differences?
Well, I took some things out. I mean, I can't do that. I'm not good at that.
Okay.
I'm not good.
I think I can, if, with permission of the board president.
Right, right.
For sure.
So first of all, let's just, if we take our eyes off this document, the original one that was sort of floating around for tonight's meeting was the product of, 7 months of sausage making. And so it was clunky, it was wordy, and Director Mata took a shot at it, and really those edits were well taken. So we just remind ourselves that the 4 things that were changed in this policy from the last one is no employee on employee use of this. They have other rights under their CBAs and under policies. Clarify that the board is not subject to these complaints. That's a political remedy.
Yep.
And that we clarified that the superintendent can receive complaints under this policy, and that was actually a catch that Director Hamada got. We can receive complaints for the superintendent under this. We have a separate form for it. That was a part of what Director Benno's issue was, so we did sort of clarify that and formalize it, so people have a thing to sign. It's the standing to make these complaints are residents or parents of kids here. And that became important, I think, because for us, we were seeing a lot of complaints during some contentious times across the country. And, well, I don't know if the complaints here in 4220, but some emails and some chatter, and just to prevent that is really for our local policies, for our local community. Those are the 4 big items. Those haven't changed based on Director Amata's suggestions, which were, again, well taken. I can run down what those were. There was a mention of the superintendent's contract in here. We got rid of that. It was superfluous. Some other pointless language. It wasn't pointless, but it wasn't getting you anywhere. And so it's additionally, the board individually and collectively shall timely refer any such complaint regarding superintendent, blah, blah, blah. That's said a different way in there. So really, I think those edits are fine, in my personal opinion. But I invite you to read them yourselves. But those are the 4 issues that we wanted to draw your attention to.
And they're addressed based on Director Amata's revision.
Well, they were, yeah, she didn't disturb those in her edits, and her edits were really trimming up the language, which is good.
Okay.
The biggest problem I had with this is I felt that we kind of were veering too much on his contract. And even though that is in place always and is something that's valuable, in the past, we wanted to, and it took us a long time as a board before to come to this, that there was some place that we could, if it rose to the occasion, that the superintendent's action, after they've gone through all the steps, could be brought to the board, because we are the superintendent's boss. And this is not for frivolous stuff. And the board is gathering together. Doesn't mean that we're going to even if the complaint comes through and we look at it, doesn't mean we're going to take action on it. We could come to the conclusion that this doesn't rise to the occasion to do anything about. But if we feel it does, we have that option. And that's what I just felt strongly about, that we have to have a purpose to be here and oversee actually the CEO of this district. And that's why we're here. And honestly, there's very few that have come across against a superintendent. You know, it just doesn't happen. Maybe on staff, but not from our parents or our students in our district. Those complaints have, in the 4 years I've been on the board, I think maybe there was 2 or 3 or 4 maybe. And that's nothing to be looked at as a burden financially or anything to look at it. And we took care of them, so.
Here's the proposed form if you want to take a look at it. When you're ready for me to scroll down, let me know.
You maybe
Bigger?
possibly make that a little bit bigger. There.
Well, and I did put on there, is there a date on there?
It's at the bottom here.
Okay. And I did put on there that the board president will formally answer within 14 business days how this matter will be handled. That doesn't mean we've met and made a decision. It's just that we will meet on such and such in an executive session to go over it. And then a response within a calendar month, like we decided not to handle it. You know, you had your day in the sun to come to talk to the board or whatever.
I thought about that, the calendar month.
Yeah.
You know, December's very short for our calendar working month, so maybe we should say 30 days or something like that.
I
30
also don't
working
believe that
days.
this is a procedure. I believe it's a policy. And so I feel like when you're putting specific dates, I think timely response.
I think we have that in the policy.
I see that. I just see that it does say specifically 14 business days and things like that. I feel like that would normally be handled in a policy, or in a procedure, sorry, I'm gonna say that wrong every time tonight. That being a procedure that would accompany this, that would be my thoughts, but as opposed to in the policy of being timely.
I feel like that's an editorial change. We can do timely and the procedure right, the actual times. I think that sounds great.
And I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Other discussion from my colleagues?
how do I say this? And I'm trying to be really very respectful for this. I remember last year when we were thinking of hiring a new superintendent, that there were multiple complaints mentioned, and that we were looking at saying, hey, you know, we've got so many complaints against Israel. Are we going to be able to judge him according to that? And I don't mean, you know, specifically, but I'm just trying to see the next superintendent that is sitting at that chair, if, for example, group of people that out there do not like what he or she does, are we inviting them to then turn in, you know, hundreds of form that we just saw and say, I have a complaint about this superintendent, therefore his contract or her contract should not be extended, or this person who is considered to be the next superintendent of this district, we're going to file all of this because we don't like this person, so that we can clear the field for someone else that they have in mind. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not inviting, and 4220 is a policy that we need to have, but I think we should consider that.
They can do that now, though.
They could do that.
Do it now, yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is that was what was used as a tool. And what I'm saying is, if we do this, right, if we say, yes, you can submit that form however you want against the superintendent, are we inviting?
I mean, in my opinion, I don't think.
Right. I'm just saying, so just think about that.
Yeah.
Well,
What are
usually the circumstances why it took us so long to come up with this prior to you even being on the board, Awali,
Right.
was there were usually some issues that had gone with a student and a parent, and they'd gone up the chain of command, and they got to the top person, which was in charge, and under the old policy, that was it. You didn't have any recourse.
There's no beyond.
There was no other recourse, and that's why it took us a while, but we did come to a 5-0 vote on that we changed it to have, there should be some recourse when you have something that a parent against, or a policy that was so grievous. This isn't for, I didn't like the way he did this or that or the other.
Right.
It's something that's, and again, as a board, we can easily say, this has no merit.
Yeah,
That's
so
why
let's-
we're here, to make good decisions.
But let's say we're not here, and it's, 10 years from now, or we're all not here, and it's a different group of people, and it is different superintendent, and then they have this mechanism. Are we inviting them? Because I'm always thinking,
Yeah, I hear what you're
I'm not
saying.
thinking of tomorrow, I'm thinking of the next generation, because we're writing policy, we're writing for the next
Yeah.
generation. So that's what I'm trying to make sure that we're not giving ammunition to people that might. That's all I'm saying. So let's think through this and figure out how can we make sure that we achieve both in terms of having an avenue, like you said, which is, if somebody is ignoring what they're supposed to be doing, their job, then they have to have a mechanism, which they can still do, which is they can come to us and say, well, I've gone to the superintendent for this and nothing happened. And then we can bring up that to the superintendent.
Well, this formalizes that,
Right.
though.
It just formalizes
Yeah, it just makes it more formal.
And I mean, people are more reluctant, I think, when you actually put them on the spot, put your name on here, show a paper trail, and that you're gonna have to come up here and have some proof, that, this isn't just, I don't like this person because he didn't listen to me or something. To me, it's a formal process. It's serious. And again, I haven't seen that happen. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, but I haven't seen them go through a formal process. And I just think we always want to make sure that these are public schools, taxpayers' dollars pay for these schools. They always should have a voice in how their children are treated or programs that are going on to their school. Now, I just feel strongly about that.
Director Fair, I'm sorry.
Wait.
Can I clarify what his
Right.
comment was on this one? Do you mind? I was trying to understand, is your comment that you're not agreeing with, or at least questioning, I'll use the
Right.
softer language on those. You're questioning that we should allow a 4220 complaint against the superintendent at all? Or is it the process by which is being formalized within this document?
What I'm trying to say is, if we say this 4220 can be used against the superintendent, then what I worried about is inviting more frivolous
Yeah,
people
I get it.
will come forward, and then it will be like, okay, we've got 50 against the superintendent.
So are you proposing that 4220 strikes the ability to make a complaint against the superintendent, so to avoid the weaponization of that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's a very different view than what Director Hamada is proposing today.
Director Clark?
So I have a question for Acting Superintendent Behringer.
Oh, boy.
As a former principal, my observation was the most common type of thing that gets appealed immediately to central administration is a suspension or expulsion of a student for some activity, and the parent is upset about the enforcement and obviously the consequence or the failure to have a fair trial, fill in the blank. Now that you're a central administrator, you can see that the reason the old policy said it stops when it gets to the superintendent's desk, because you don't want to simply open it up for every time a parent has a complaint. You want to be very specific, because the sorts of things we're trying to address have to do with morale. So comment on that.
Yeah, Director Clark, I would say that there's a lot of things that once it leaves the building is left to interpretation by those that are maybe not in that space. And so you try to always handle everything at the lowest level. I mean, that's the goal across the district, and regardless of whether we're dealing with adults or dealing with students, is to address everything at the lowest possible level. And everybody, adults or students, have access to due process, their due process rights, and to go through a process that is fair. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say that it could be a challenge when it leaves the building, having all the information and knowledge in that particular scenario that you give about a student and their discipline, and coming up here and then having someone else be able to control, and it's in that space of whether you can remain objective or not, and that can be a challenge. So, I mean, again, I'm not stepping out of that seat and stepping into this seat. I think, just looking at this particular English, not that you're asking about, there's a lot of ways to be able to share constructive criticism or concern about a particular individual, regardless of their title. And we have processes in place in this district already that people can share that. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Well, I mean, this doesn't take away the chain of command to me. If you've gone through all these things, I mean, you don't just, if you have a complaint, you just don't go to the superintendent. You have to go through all, the lowest level and keep going. And so it takes some involvement to me, that it has to really probably be grievous to get to this level, that's all. And I don't want to make more problems. I just want to make it
I guess
Make it easier, yeah.
my question is, can we live with this? Or do we want to come back for a ninth reading?
Well, I'm done. I'm not writing anymore.
'Cause I feel like I can live with this.
I don't think I can live with this. Let's think about it. Because this is the first time we're seeing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
personally, I prefer the updated version.
The
that came
updated,
From
which,
you.
okay.
Can I ask a question with the form?
Sure.
If anything is, so I think about in the world of, my world in banking, if somebody is filing like for us to reimburse for something and we find out that there's something illegal that happened, if your checks are stolen, you're saying that you want us to give us your money back for that, you have to be willing to prosecute, whatever that is. So if somebody brings up something in here that is illegal, I'm assuming that we have the requirement to pass that off. Like if they're saying fraud or anything like that. I don't want to get into, I don't want to become a judicial body.
And I have bad news for you. Having sat on one of those review of impact on student, you will act actually as the governing body.
One of our roles.
How about this? It's a legal matter.
Yes.
If it's a legal matter. I understand judicial, there's decisions that make, but sure, but legal matters.
I want the lawyer to deal with the legal matters.
Well, I would like if it's something that needs to be referred to the police or anything like that, that would be, does that need to be stated? Is that just assumed? Could you elaborate on that for me?
Certainly. We have mandatory reporting, as you know, so it depends on what the facts are that we see in those complaints and that kind of thing. But if something comes up, we would report it. We would be,
Obligated to.
Well,
Yeah, we
but
would
you're
be-
saying the facts are, and so do we have to research what the facts are to be able to substantiate it first, or do we just on its face, if somebody is saying something that is illegal, that's referred automatically?
I would
And so
think that if it's illegal, like criminal, we would refer it to the police department. If it's logical and that kind of thing.
I mean, it's obvious.
It would be
Right.
obvious, especially if it's something terrible. We're not
If
gonna.
it's obvious if the person's done it,
We're,
right?
we're not going to convene this board and bring in the superintendent and say, there's a complaint about you, you've committed murder. We're not going to do that.
No.
But I was sort of being flippant, but I think it just depends on what the facts are in the complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are mandatory reportings, there are whistleblower policies that we have. We should report, staff should report illegal conduct.
Absolutely.
And we certainly would, yeah.
But we have the right authorities that are
Yeah.
being okay.
I think so. I mean, can't predict every sort of comment, but we take everything that comes through there on those forms and these kinds of complaints, we take really seriously. And we look at the veracity of the complaining party, if somebody's lying and sending us in the wrong direction and abusing the process for personal gain, well, we'll probably look at that too.
Thank you.
One of these days, please get us the amount of cost.
For 4220?
Yeah.
It's hard to calculate. We did try, but I'll come back and maybe we can
In an
just talk in
approximate-
general.
right,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be specific, but like an approximate how much we've spent over the years to.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to know, because a lot of times we hear, oh, we have to investigate, but we don't know how many hours of employees it takes for that investigation to happen and how much it costs the
Yeah.
district.
We do a lot of investigations, and school districts in general do that because they're run by these policies, so.
Right, but you can't, Director Farah, which I agreed with, you can't go back and look at the costs when it was staff on staff, how this used to work, right? 'Cause-
That's what the
well, I mean,
policy
that's where
said.
your costs would be, and I definitely see where we need to change that.
Right,
so.
right. And
I
that's
mean,
what-
I don't think it would be even prudent to bring
Right.
a dollar amount to that, because that shouldn't be the way it's handled.
Hard to calculate too, but.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's just my opinion, but.
I feel like we just got this tonight, and thank you.
Appreciate it.
Director, for writing this out, because I know we've gone back and forth on this one too.
I see a ninth reading in our future,
In ninth
I
reading.
do.
I'm done.
but I need to know
Unless there's a consensus.
consensus-wise.
There's a consensus.
But that's, I mean, the whole reason why we're, policy bodies is to make sure that the policy
You'd be
actually
right.
reflects our own value and, in a consensus way. So if we have to take time, it's still,
I just don't know if we have a consensus or not to move forward with it in whichever direction.
I just would like to know what difference
does it make?
is time gonna make? What are the things that are different?
I just want to read this more, because I just got this, so I can understand exactly what it says. So therefore, if I have a couple of, sentences or a couple of things that I want to change so that we can agree on that, then yes, right? Because I feel like I just got this, and I don't want to say yes, because.
No, I'm not trying to, no, that's your opinion. I value that.
I feel like this is very similar. I think there's been some good edits done, just for me comparing. So I feel good about it.
Can we look at the one part that says the superintendent or designee will, third paragraph, last sentence,
Let me pull it up. And
where it
is,
has the parenthesis and leaving that sentence out? Can-
okay, in Director Hamada's or,
Yes.
okay,
No, I just don't think that's belongs there, because it's already gonna go back to the contracts and the CBOs, so why talk about it? Just take that out of there.
which section?
She's
I'm
saying that
sorry.
it says
up.
take it out.
Keep going down?
No, go up.
Third paragraph.
Third paragraph,
Third
last
paragraph,
sentence.
sorry, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it says right there. No, she took it out.
Oh, it's already out.
She took it out. You took
Okay.
it out already.
So this is.
This is Director Hamada's as I
Right. You were.
got it.
I mean, as it stands right now, we still have 4220 complaints against staff. So there's kind of a reason to,
If I can, I remind you that this is about legal procedures.
Is it?
Is that not correct, Paul?
Well, inasmuch as it provides a process, a due process, if you will, then it is sort of a legal procedure. Somebody feels aggrieved, somebody takes umbrage with a practice of a teacher, they can file the complaint, and it goes up. That one stops at the superintendent. And the complaints against the superintendent come to you.
As it should.
right, but I mean, as the policy is written today,
It is not required by state law.
no, as what policy is written today, complaints against staff members against other staff members. And that seemed to be where the area was really being an issue, and that's why I said, it sounds great to keep bringing this up, but until then, that's still a possibility.
That is still the policy, right?
So, okay,
And that's dollars to this district.
I would also just point one thing out. The way the practice and the policy work right now is, without the changes, is you can file something against the superintendent, but it seems as if, with this practice sort of clunky underneath it, that the board would have to do something, that you lack discretion, that you would have to do something. And so we get these kooky requests to hire outside counsel and investigate, and in any whim somebody has, they can demand that. And that seems like a bit of a stretch for your oversight. You wouldn't be necessarily obligated to put all that time and resource into any given complaint that makes no sense on its face.
Yep.
Director Margal?
I agree with wanting to get something done timely.
Okay, this part down here.
Yeah. Sorry, I saw you changing that as they were talking, and I'm sorry for the interruption earlier, that was inappropriate. So, within a timely manner that it was received, and then, I mean, because I'm thinking just one calendar, like if that's potential that we would have to have it, you get it on December 14th, right before everybody's gone for, like, and I think that there needs to be,
In a timely manner as well, but we can reword it differently.
yes.
Okay.
And I think that the first step is just that it was received and not how it will necessarily be handled.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, and so, I think about this with, when people make disputes. We first just say it was received, and then have a time period by which we respond to it. With those edits, I'm fine.
Same.
So do we have a consensus then, it sounds like, to move forward with it this way?
I don't know if we do.
I mean, consensus is,
3 of the 5.
I'm okay with it, with the changes.
Okay? We'll put it on the 27th. If it doesn't go, it doesn't go. We'll bring it back. I want to show you one really quick thing before we wind up here. There've been some questions about the readability of how to look at this when it's all marked up. If you leave track changes on, but you say no markup, but track changes is still on, so your changes are being recorded, you can see it without all the markup. It's much easier to read. So I don't know how many of you know that, but I just want to make it as easy as possible. And if I can sit down with any of you at any time to, go through an easy way to look at it, let me know. I'm happy to do it.
No, you and I already, I really need, I don't understand how to use this software.
I think part of the problem is Word Online doesn't have the same exact thing, so you can't do the same kind of things than the desktop version of Word.
And again, I can sit down with anybody and show them how to open it in desktop version. It's much easier to work in that. So I'm happy to at any time.
I need all the help I can.
Okay, anytime you want, just let me know.
I find sometimes that the comments I make does not show up. And so that's why a lot of times I wait until the day we're here and do the-
Anytime, come on in and let's
Okay,
get it
let's-
sorted.
Okay.
You
Okay.
gotta do that control and shift.
Right, and it still, it doesn't.
It
because
doesn't?
I did,
Oh, that's
I
not
did that
good.
and then it's just,
This program I don't like.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Halley?
I do not.
Dr. Behringer? Nope. So it looks like we're done with policy work this evening. So it is 6:50, so it's 6:54, and I'm going to go ahead and adjourn our special meeting work session.
You.
You.